Hey folks, welcome back to the show. A few weeks ago, I had the privilege of being a presenter at the Accelerate conference presented by NetView and Vertifor, and had the privilege of recording a few live episodes with people there, other presenters as well as Sid Rowe from Vertifor, which you'll hear in a future episode. But in this episode here, I wanted to share a great conversation I had with my man, Chris Cline, the Executive Director of the Agents Council for Technology, part of the Big I at the national level. Chris is a career insurance man. He's been on the carrier side and is now on the advisor and the technologist side. Really enjoyed our conversation and want to present it to you now. Let's go ahead and hit that bumper and get you straight to your conversation with Chris Cline. Let's go. Okay, back for another session here at Accelerate 2024 in New Orleans. And I have the pleasure of talking with Mr. Chris Cline of the Agents Council for Technology, as well as some other stuff that he's working on and we'll get into. Is your title Executive Director or Grand Chairman, or what's your title over there at ACT?
I don't know. As a child who grew up on the Flintstones, I'm partial to Grand Poobah.
Yeah, Grand Poobah. I like it. Has a nice
water buffalo or whatever they were.
Yeah, water buffalo. The chapter there in Bedrock or whatever it was.
Exactly. Yes.
Oh man.
No. Yeah. Executive Director of the Agents Council for Technology. Yeah.
Cool.
Thanks.
And as part of the Big Eyes initiative at the national level, you work with all the state chapters, I would imagine, right?
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting model. It truly is a federation, something that I always thought was like a Star Trek reference, but it turns out that it actually is a real thing. But yeah, so the national program is made up of the national Big I has a lot of programs on profit and not-profit side that are really all built to help states fill in gaps and augment the services they offer our shared member agents. Yeah,
you are just a very interesting guy in the industry because it's like you are almost a cat. You've had several different lives in the industry. You started off, why don't I just let you tell this story? You are an interesting man, Chris Cline. So for people that may not be familiar with you, you've never been on the agency side, but you've done just about everything else in the industry. Why don't you give us backstory, what's been your career up to this point, whatever you want to do, highlights and whatever else.
Well, I appreciate that. First of all, I think to have multiple lives, like a cat, right, you have to have died once. So I'd like to think that that's never happened.
Did I get that wrong?
No, I don't know.
I was totally rethinking the 9 lives thing. Sorry.
No, it's all right. No, I appreciate it, though, and thanks for having me on. I did, yeah. I started off on the carrier side and spent all of my career on the carrier side up until just 2 years ago when I made this move. But somewhat cliche, like a lot of folks, the industry found me. I didn't find the industry, and I began really my professional side as a graphic designer. So I went to school to study fine arts. Actually, I went to school to study becoming an engineer, and I ran out of pure intellectual horsepower when it was time to make my way through Calculus 2.
Oh, wow.
And I tried to find a place where I could land, but ended up at a regional carrier in Ohio, Westfield Insurance, with an internship because my faculty advisor in graphic design school used to work, was a part-time graphic design professor at the school who also ran the advertising and graphics department at Westfield. And was like, hey, put me together, go do an internship, the whole 9 yards. And so I interned there a couple years in college.
Well, a 30-year internship, huh?
32, yeah, right. But I did spend like 9 months where I went somewhere else, worked for a small printing company, and then just because there really wasn't a role at the time, and that was way before job postings and all those kind of things. And after about 9 months, that manager who gave me the internship called me out of the blue and basically said, hey, we got permission to add to staff. We'd love to hire to the graphics team. And in a move that I have zero regrets about, I actually quit my job at the printing company and said yes to go back to Westfield without even really ever asking what the salary was. I just thoroughly loved working there and the team I was with, and it turned out to be a phenomenal move. I mean, I had the opportunity to do a ton of different things on the carrier side and just super kind of walk through there. So not only the graphic design, I got a chance to work in marketing, and in the traditional sense, product and collateral and the newsletters and the communications that the carrier would send out to agents. And I had a chance to then go out into the field as a field rep, promoting personal lines. Did that for a while, and then had the opportunity to come back into the home office and led, it was called the Underwriting Performance Group, but it was compliance and then employee training. So it was kind of an interesting twist there. And then did that for a couple of years. But the two big chunks of my career, I was fortunate enough to get to lead a personal lines region of a few states for 7 or 8 years. And then the last nearly decade, I was on the carrier side. I was a part of the leadership team for agency distribution and had accountability for a lot of the agency-facing things that were not pricing and underwriting. So from prospecting determination, all the contract work, M&A, and licensing, and a lot of the relationship type things in the industry, which is really how I got familiarized with the Big I and what the states were doing. Had some relationships with a lot of the other third parties out there, and it was really kind of how I found technology. It was sort of a new thing. Actually, really wasn't a new thing, but it was kind of getting rejuiced with what would have become called InsurTech, and just kind of leaned into that. I'm kind of a strategist and an ideator. I love to think about the future and what if, so I've never worked in technology at all, and just started to work my way into it and got really familiarized with the industry and realized there's a whole other part of the industry that's out here doing stuff like this and getting together and collaborating and sharing ideas and thinking about what the future's like and what do we all need and how can we better create this synergy between carriers and agencies and customers and providers, and not something that everybody inside the industry sees or knows about. It's kind of fascinating. If you're an underwriter, a claims adjuster, or kind of on the front line in an agency, you might not be aware that these kind of things where we're at today are even happening. And I was really intrigued by the conversation because it was really broad. It was really forward-looking. And quite candidly, it was a diversion from the daily things. And did that for a long time. I had the podcast when I was at Westfield called Closing the Gap, and really loved doing that with a team of folks. And a lot of speaking engagements came from that, and really loved getting to work on cool things inside and outside the company when Ron Bird called me, who was the former executive director at ACT, and said, hey, I'm planning my retirement in a year, and not very many people know, but they've asked me to help them think about a successor, and there's a couple folks that came to mind, and you're one of them. So after 6 months of courtship, I finally decided, you know, what the heck, you only live once. I really enjoyed this part of the industry and being a part of these conversations, and decided to make the move. And that was 2 years ago. It was April of 2022, and I made that move after what was 28 years on the carrier side. So I just aged myself there if you're good at math. So that's a long way.
28 plus 2.
28 plus 2 is 30, and there's an internship in there too. So so it's been fantastic. I mean, no regrets. Even though I had just so many amazing experiences and great support on the carrier side. I mean, I'm here because of the opportunities I had on the carrier side to just go out and explore and learn and to bring value back with it. So it's fun.
Well, it helps when your experiences are with such a high quality carrier. I mean, Westfield is a super regional. They're not a blue chip national, but they're like one rung below the progressives and the travelers as far as the reach of their distribution. But I imagine you really benefited from being at such a high quality carrier that is pretty focused on who they want to be. They're not one of those do everything carriers. Westfield has a pretty clear identity in the marketplace, I think.
Yeah, it was without question, and incredibly well respected. It was a coveted appointment for agencies, and such a focus on things that I care a great deal about, with culture and employee development and mentorship and DE&I efforts. And so a lot of those kind of things that, you don't necessarily think about when you're looking for a place to work, or how do you start to attach value to the intangibles. It was a great focus there. And I've just had the opportunity to work for a couple of amazing folks that were super strong champions and advocates, and gave me opportunities to grow and learn and probably just as much skin my knees and stub my toes and fall flat on my face, but to help support that. And those are the kind of things that give you a chance to learn, and it's part of the reason why I'm still here. So some of those folks that I had those relationships with, either as peers or reporting relationships upwards, or those that were on my team, I care immensely about and deeply value the opportunity to work with them. And quite a few of them have remained friends. So that's one of the great things about this industry is think about all of these things we get to do. You and I are sitting here in part because we love the industry and shaping things.
Yep.
But this stuff's cool because of the people we get to do it with, and that can't be taken lightly. And maybe more appropriately, it can't be understated how powerful the relationships are that we get to form here, and how great it is to pick right up where we left off. Whether it's over a coffee or something with more hops in it.
Man, I cannot agree more. I think it's so fun. The way that relationships happen in the industry. There's so many people that I don't ever see in real life outside of at a conference or a mastermind event. But all the communication that happens in between, the emails and text messages and phone calls or Zoom meetings or, Facebook comment section or whatever. It's like, I don't actually know you in a day-to-day sense, but I sure feel like I know you. And, I would consider a lot of people, acquaintances and friends that I only know through insurance. Like, I don't see them at my kid's soccer game. We don't go to church. We don't, hang out around town because they live in another town or another state. So, what a beautiful thing that we both get to take part in, right?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And a lot justifiably, I think, gets said negatively about social media and those kind of things. Yep. But, you and I met each other because we have such shared network and interacted on social media posts.
Shout out to Grayson Thompson.
Yeah, those guys. And all of them, right? And so that when we did bump into each other in line to get a Diet Pepsi, I assume, at an event, oh my gosh, how you doing? Whatever. And then just start shooting a breeze from there. And
you're Chris Cline.
And
I recognize your face.
Oh my gosh, you had to look right over top of my bald spot, right? If anybody doesn't know, James
is
bald.
It's shaved. There's a difference.
It's bald. I shaved the other part because it's bald on top.
I was trying to give you an out.
Oh, dude, I started losing my hair in really early in college. And so at that point in time, when there was just, your buddies just abused you nonstop. Like I had no choice other than to embrace the fact that I was going bald. In fact, real quick, funny story. So I had a group of buddies. We were kind of ragtag, but we had a pretty good intramural softball team at college. We won a lot of things. And we went there and we just looked totally sloppy and had our coolers full of adult beverages, but we won a lot of tournaments. And I was quite a bit heavier back then and could hit the ball a long way. And whenever I would hit a home run, when I would cross home plate, everybody would rub my bald spot for good luck. So there was really no way other than at that point in life to embrace the fact that at some point I was going to be chrome.
Yeah, that is a wonderful way to embrace it. I love it.
Yeah.
So going back to things not involving your hairline, you made the choice to make a pivot and impact the inertia of your legacy, if you will.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm looking at this thing on your pullover here. The book, we're going to talk about ACT for sure. The book is interesting because it's a different kind of book. It doesn't read the same as so many industry books do, where it's teaching someone, well, this is how you do operations or sales or marketing or whatever it happens to be. What was the inspiration for doing a book, other than the fact that you've had an amazing career and learned so many lessons that other people can definitely benefit from?
Yeah, that's a great question. Early in my life, I was a science junkie and really into physics and space and the universe, and really got away from that for really no reason. Maybe it was just diving into my career and trying to learn and grow and raise a family, and had spent a lot of time racing BMX and got phenomenal opportunities to travel the country doing that. But I guess now probably 6, 7, 8 years ago, it would have been like when podcasts really became a part of the norm. I not only just got into them through industry podcasts, but started to find other things in the periphery and found a few science-based or more of sort of like a fringe intellectual kind of concept out there. And I was listening to a podcast, and I should remember the specifics, but it was along the lines of like black holes and the event horizon, and which is the spot at point which the gravity becomes so strong you can't escape. So super geeky. Yep. And I was thinking about that through the lens of my personal life. And then shortly thereafter, I was listening to something. I think it was 7 years ago. Josh Clark had a podcast where he talked about the great filter, which is this concept of something that a civilization or a species must clear or get through their great filter in order to ultimately fulfill what they're here for.
Mm-hmm.
And not to get, philosophical or too much, but I started to think about, wonder what that might translate to in your personal life or our industry or InsurTech or whatever it was. And so what really then started was me just taking notes of scientific principles that we might all somewhat have some familiarity with from science, physics, math, whatever it was, and started to create a journal. And I got to about 10 or 12 of those-ish with notes about how could those translate into my personal life or our personal lives, professional development, maybe even business. And I thought someday I would do something with it. I was also starting to do more public speaking and thought that it would be great to have like a keynote that would be kind of fun to go do that was a little bit outside of just core insurance.
Yeah.
And then somewhat prophetically, it hit me between the eyes that our industry had procured the word legacy and applied somewhat of a negative connotation to it. It's like we do when you hear legacy software, you don't think the most sophisticated things. And so referring to legacy agencies, legacy carriers, legacy employees as being high tenured,
lacking innovation.
Yeah. And actually I had an agency once say, "Don't call me legacy." And so I was thinking about, gosh, all right, you can do something about it.
Yeah.
And this all came together with me refreshing myself on Newton's laws of motion. And it kind of hit me. You can do something about this. You can create an external force and create change. And it was just because I was marinating on this word legacy that this concept of inertia of legacy came together. And that became just one of my scientific principles. And it was just there. It was simmering. And I was just kind of riffing on that for several years. And then after I made this career move, I really don't even know what compelled me, but it was Monday morning of Thanksgiving week. It must have been, that would have been 22. And I just woke up that morning. I'd taken the week off and said, I'm going to start writing this darn thing. I just felt like it was there. And I started writing the book.
Love it.
And there was some pieces that were missing, and I knew I didn't have an objective way to articulate this goofy sense about how Newton's laws of motion and the concept of inertia applied to our legacy. But I just started to write, and things started to come. Right? I mean, we could get kind of philosophical about that, but that's really kind of where it came from, how the concept came to be, and really, at first, it wasn't, I'm going to write a book. It was, I wanted to kind of build just a motivational speaking mechanism, and it became that and more.
Yeah, it's that and more is an understated way of putting it. No, you have really just flapped your wings the last couple of years. It feels like I can't go on LinkedIn without seeing somebody sharing something that you put out or commenting. You know how the algorithm goes. When
right on.
You have a friend who comments on someone else's post, you see that person's post. It's like, all right, Chris, you're all over my algorithm. So whatever you're doing, it's working.
I apologize for that. Some people might need a shower after that.
Oh, man. So the book is available on Amazon. An audiobook too. Did you do one of those?
Yeah, and I really would love to have pressed harder. So I read the introduction and I read the last chapter. But yeah, a professional voiceover guy read the rest of it.
Yeah.
But it is on Audible, Kindle, and then in hardcover and paperback, Apple Books, those kind of things. Yeah.
Your second book, you're going to do the voiceover for the Audible, right?
I'm going to definitely champion for that. And so this is an interesting thing. I know you're an author as well.
Yeah.
People who've listened to the Audible immediately say, "My gosh, I know that's you. You can hear your inflection in your voice, your passion for the topic." And that changed when, the person who didn't write the book starts to read. I don't know whether that would have been their epiphany had I not read the rest, but my hope is that people read or listen to the book that don't know me.
Yeah.
So they wouldn't necessarily understand that nuance. But
there are two kinds of audiobooks. One that is read by the author and one that is read by a professional voice actor. And they're just two different animals. I personally find great enjoyment when an author reads their book because all of the inflection is exactly as they intended because they quite literally wrote the book.
Well, you're right. And first of all, if anybody's already read it or listened to it, I'm deeply humbled and appreciate that. But you'll know, if you know me, that there's some like quirky nuance to me putting my personality into this, even though this is bigger than that, at least in my mind. But the professional voiceover person kind of reads through some of that stuff.
Yeah.
Phenomenal job, great voice, enunciation's phenomenal. So, yeah, I mean, we've already kind of kicked around with the publisher about what the next book could be.
Yeah.
Sort of loosely still attached to these laws of motion and some more business concepts here. But, yeah, I'm going to be a champion for that. I've got the equipment and did okay. And plus it was fun. I just probably have to take more time off work to go do it, which is fine.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, you said it right there. If it's not fun, then why would it be a pet project of yours? If you don't find great enjoyment from it, what are you doing? Why are you doing that?
1,000% agree with you. Yep.
It's something that's completely optional. It's not your career. It's not something with your family. So it's like, well, I'm doing this because I choose to.
Totally.
Yeah. It's part of what I'm talking about. Tomorrow in my session, just self-awareness being an important part of emotional intelligence. If you know yourself, if you know what's driving you, if you can ask yourself, why am I doing this? What is the reason? You're a lot more powerful decision maker.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And, we're in an interesting time, right? I mean, it's not cliche anymore. A lot of people spend a lot of time self-reflecting, coming out of the COVID pandemic and getting their heart and head right and figuring out what they wanted to do to spend, the rest of their lives. And I think that ties to emotional intelligence, and it's a little bit explored in the book, but you've got to know your own why. Simon Sinek says that. And if you don't know that, then how can you act in a way that has intention and purpose? And you're meandering. So to get a chance to stop by your session tomorrow. But I think that's really important. And having prioritizing that, the ability to prioritize that, make the tough decisions. And I mean, I have a list of flaws as long as my left arm, but one of the things that was powerful about this change was, I changed careers. I wrote a book, and I had a life high, like a high mark in miles that I ran all in the same year. I mean, none of those things were without massive time commitments of their own, and then still, fulfilled everything that I believe I was supposed to be doing in my family. But that was all about prioritization and applying inertia, being my own inertia, which is kind of the rallying cry.
I have a feeling if you were failing to do something at home, you would have known exactly what that was. Your bride would probably tell you exactly what you were failing to do at home.
That's true. But I mean, you talk about all the great opportunities and support I had in my career. I could not begin to today how much support I've gotten at home as well. When I was writing my book, and it was time to go bury myself for 4 or 5 hours on a Saturday or Sunday, and it was just nothing but support.
100% agree, man. Allison might as well be listed on the byline of my book as well, because she never gave me enough time.
That's awesome.
Because I always did it after the kids were in bed.
Yeah.
And there was like 3 or 4 months where I had the routine. All right, dinner, and kids go to bed, and then I go to the office, the home office, I close the door, pour myself some bourbon, put some jazz music on, and we're writing for an hour or two, and that was just every single day for 3 or 4 months.
So were you able to turn it on and off like that? That was one thing I found. Like, I would go in spurts. I should have kept better track, but I think like in just pure keyboard time, I mean, forgetting the time leading up to it with all the prep, it's probably about 200 hours.
Yeah.
And there were times where that would be like 20 or 30 hours in a week on top of everything else. And there were times where I just had to step away.
Yeah.
But when I was in it, like I was in it.
I couldn't go for longer than about 2 hours.
Okay.
The creative juice was burned after about 2 hours. And funny story, when I was writing Leaving Captivity, I had completed what I thought was the first draft.
Okay.
It was about 25,000 words, give or take. And I sent it out to a group of 8 people whose opinions matter to me. And all of them were other agents or in the distribution of insurance. None of them were professional authors or professional editors, because I had one of those. But I wanted them to edit for content and flow. It was like, does this make sense? Like, is it conceptually, good? And I got some of the most brutal feedback from people that know me and care about me. And it ended up transforming the book. I scrapped about 5,000 words from what I had written so far and added another 20,000 on top of it. So it ended up being about a 41,000 word book when it started out as a far inferior 25,000 word book. So
I love that, because I did the exact same thing. I got to that 18 to 20,000 mark, and there's a quick front side of that. I was asking some folks who had already published books, like, what should I be thinking about in word count? And I got to the kind of common consensus that if it's under 25,000, it's really not a book. It's maybe a couple blogs.
Yeah.
So I had in my mind I wanted to get to 25, but once I got to the 18 to 20, I sent it out to a few folks, some inside the industry and some not, and just react to this and kind of the same thing. And I got a couple of, I don't follow, you're nuts, whatever, but the theme was, hey, there's something here.
Yeah.
And once I got over that hump, it got to, I don't even know what, 55, 57,000 words like that, which is less important than what's in it. But that process of content and concept editing and gut checking versus the technical editing, I would never have had, I wouldn't have had it in me to do the technical editing. I mean, I would have had to have farmed that out or subcontracted. I mean, I can't send a 3-sentence email without a typo. There's no way in the world I'm sending out a couple 100-page book without typos.
Yeah.
But
that's why professional editors have their jobs, for sure.
Drive me bonkers.
It's
Way
just
too
like
detailed.
driving, running an agency. There are certain things that the principal should be doing. A small number of things, I would posit, but so many other things that should be hired out, either to an employee or a contractor. It's like, don't do it. Don't spend your time on that. It's like editing for an author.
So hard.
Yeah. So as we kind of go to the last phase of our conversation here, ACT, part of the Big I, is an incredibly important resource just for really educating and enlightening distribution on what is available out there and how they should be doing things. Do you want to talk about the mission, the mandate of ACT for a second?
Yeah, the cool thing about ACT, and I got associated with it when I was on the carrier side and sat on some of these work groups, which is really at the core of what ACT is, but it is a truly agnostic and neutral program that's a part of the agent's trade association. And so the agent is the customer in this regard, but it brings together carriers, technology providers, and agents in a truly neutral, non-competitive forum to really identify whatever the issues and the opportunities are, to think about and to help agencies get tools and resources to deploy technology with greater success. So this is the 25th year of ACT. I mean, if you didn't know, not only is it's been around since 2009, and it was very workflow oriented, best practices oriented, transactional, which was perfect at the time. And now we're starting to kind of reshape it a little bit and think more about the future and how can we play a different role in the organization of bringing those three stakeholder groups together and hopefully think about it through more of a unified vocabulary and better leveraging the partners that support us as the technical experts in that regard. So it's a really interesting time here at ACT to take something that's 25 years old, got a deep legacy in the industry that's done some great things, and to think about how we retool it in a way that still acknowledges that the carriers and the technology companies and the agencies have to have equitable seats at the table to make sure we're talking about the things that are impacting our business, either risks or the exciting opportunities out there in an ideal way, so that we don't end up with things that are disjointed in how they get deployed. And we'll see how that goes, but I'm really excited about reshaping that and the support that the Big I has for enabling and really championing a strategic refresh of ACT. But on paper, it might not sound radically different, but I think the way we kind of show up and can add value for all of those stakeholder groups is only ripe for improvement.
So as the executive director, how are you going to adjust course when the organization's legacy has so much inertia that already exists?
Yeah, I look at you. And you needed to see his face when he asked that. Well, the great thing is, and exciting thing is, and so there's new leadership at the Big I. So Bob retired. Charles Symington is the new CEO, and he's just got a really open mind. He's really exciting, really learning about the programs and leaning into the industry to hear what the challenges are. So there's support.
Yeah.
So it's if that was not the case, I wouldn't even have just said, what I just said. So it's a really exciting time with the association as we just kind of look at what's the whole next gen look like, and where are the areas where the Big I can make a meaningful impact and continue to add value to the industry. And so it's easier to do that when you've got the support of the folks you work with and for.
What, in a concise way of describing what the deliverables are for the Agents Council on Technology, for someone who may not be familiar with ground floor, what do you guys do for the run-of-the-mill retail agent out there? That the member of their state Big I goes to the annual convention, reasonably familiar with what the Big I does, but maybe doesn't know what ACT does. How would you describe it?
Yeah, so we use work groups, and so we've identified some themes. Those will likely pivot, but we invite everybody to come together, and it's all of those stakeholder groups working on these issues and create. Historically, it's been white papers and best practice and tools and resources, and there's still a fair number of those out on the website. Customer experience journey is completely mapped with how technology can impact all that. So that's one of the pieces that has been very well adopted and continue to evolve. We've got a lot of cyber and data privacy tools and resources out there that we've collaborated with the legal team and the compliance team at the Big I, kind of morphing those kind of things. Tips and tricks on how to choose new technology and to think more deeply around the change management and the contractual obligations and those types of things. And we're doing more and more speaking engagements, which is a way of bringing us better, quicker, faster to market, showcasing our partners, the people that are actually the experts, via webinars and short videos. And we really just want people to get involved so that we know we're focusing on the right things.
Yep.
Because it's really easy for me to sit here, or a small group of people to sit here and say, these are the 3 to 5 things. And so I would encourage you to lean in, get involved. If you are a member of the state Big I where you're located, you are a member of ACT. So it's included. And there's something.
No one's asking you to join anything for those of you out there.
No. Well, I would say if you're not a member of the Big I at all, go join your state.
You should join the Big I.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't want to assume that you've read my book, but in chapter 9, we talk about contracts.
Sure.
And it starts with carriers, and then MGAs, and then the agreements you have with your employees. And I end chapter 9 talking about associations. And I make a pretty strong statement there. The language I've used in my podcast is that people in our industry that are not a member of any trade association are parasites, and they're allowing themselves to be carried in a wagon that's pulled by their peers. Because whether you join the trade association or not, you are feeling the positive impact and benefits of the work of the trade association. It's like,
well, I'll let you use
I use the word because it's very intentional. It's like, how dare you say that you're not going to join when the people that are doing that work are benefiting you, even if you're not a member, because the work that they do at the Big I, at ACT, is benefiting the entire industry in the P&C insurance world. It's like, if you're just ignorant of the benefits of joining because no one said, hey, you should join the Big I or the PIA or whatever your flavor of the association is, that's one thing. But when you know what the association does and you choose to not be a part of it, shame on you.
Well, yeah, and I appreciate that strong advocacy for us as advocates. And I think at times, if you're looking at your expenses, whether you're an agent, whether you're
easy to cut.
Yeah, you look at it and what's the immediate value, and the way I try to articulate it, there are some of the programs at the state and national level that have a more immediate ROI.
Yeah.
But this is an investment in the health of the channel, and so if you are an independent agent or you're a business that needs healthy, viable independent agencies for your success.
Well, it's like being a good citizen.
Yeah.
It's like paying your taxes.
Yeah, that's it.
Because it funds the police force and the fire department that comes when your house is on fire. You know, the association is basically you're being a good citizen of the insurance industry. It's kind of the same thing, in my opinion.
Well, I think that's a great analogy because really the core of it is continually working on trying to have the right conversation with the right organizations at the right time to minimize the number of barriers or roadblocks that it takes for the industry to succeed. That stuff doesn't happen necessarily with a skyrider flying over and banners, and it doesn't happen every day. Some of this stuff takes a long time to manifest, but you have an organization here that, of course, has the agency at the center, but it's truly neutral and agnostic. And we're here for the greater good, and so if those are the kind of things that are important, you can kind of get out of it what you're willing to put into it, which seems counterintuitive, right? You got to spend money and then go donate time. Well, there's some value in that. So we have some partners and some companies and agents that are really involved, and they're finding value. They're getting in front of things. They're helping shape conversations, and others that understand that and they're a little less involved, then that's okay. Yep. But I would encourage any agency listening to understand what your state's up to, and
100%.
And
because it directly impacts every single agent.
It does, yeah,
at the state and the federal level.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's an interesting model, and something that I think people should be involved with.
Well, I don't know about you, but I'm really glad insurance is regulated at the state level. I do not want the federal government being in control of property and casualty insurance. Because Lord knows they would screw it up 12 ways from here to Sunday.
James said that. No. Yeah, right. I mean, there's off and on, there's been pros and cons and different topics, but every state's got something different. Weather patterns and legal environments and those types of things.
That's where my head goes instantly. It's the needs of the citizens of Iowa are very different from the citizens in California as it pertains to property and casualty insurance. So, local governance is something I'm a big fan of.
Yeah, it creates some complexities. Again, I'm an advocate for it too. But you start to state agencies are now writing in more states.
Yep.
If you're a carrier trying to balance compliance and contractual language across.
Oh yeah.
Because as you know, there's some states that have
wonky stuff,
very different,
very weird stuff.
But in their world, that's what we do. We're normal.
Like the state of Kentucky, where you have to file a completely separate return for the county that you do business in.
Yeah, there's
Kentucky is like what?
What's it right? Like I grew up in Ohio, still work in Ohio, and so you kind of view like Ohio's laws as being the ones that I just base everything off of. But most states have sort of like that pro business, go do your thing, do the right thing dynamic. But there's some very interesting. Michigan's got some unique laws that are hard to navigate with no fault.
Auto insurance, the whole no fault thing. There's like unlimited PIP. What? How in the world do you guys have unlimited PIP up there? How does that work?
Well, yeah. And then look at the average price of premium up there versus some other states where that's not there. And, whatever. We could get really...
Well, sorry. Sorry for those of you that have now turned off this episode because we went into Rambletown.
And I'm out over my skis when I get into too much into that kind of stuff. But yeah, there's... It's really complex.
Yeah.
And it needs to have people that focus on it at state level.
Well, when it comes to technology and wrapping people's arms around it, I think the work that you guys do at ACT is essential as far as just education and empowerment. So if you're a member of the Big I, then keep on looking over here at the camera because the people that are watching on YouTube are going to see that. Most of the people are going to listen to this on a podcast, so you're not even seeing where I'm looking when I'm glancing over at the camera trying to make a point visually. But if you're a member of the Big I, you already are a member of ACT, the Agents Council for Technology, and you already get to enjoy the work that Chris Cline and his team does over there. So any last words before we go, man?
No, I appreciate it. I mean, just the support, the opportunity to talk about the book and some of the creative things outside of that. I mean, one of the things that I've just really appreciate and have grown to appreciate is that everybody is more than just their job title and what they do. And so these opportunities just to sit and chat and get to know people, human beings, what makes it tick are phenomenal and why they do things. I love that about what we get to do. And then, for the organization I work for, way more than ACT. And so whether you're looking for hiring, you're looking for diversity, you're looking for best practice information, for market access, There's a lot of stuff going on at state and national level that is all built with this sole intent of trying to help independent agencies. So
love it.
Take a peek.
Oh, that is a not so subtle plug to make sure that you're a Big I member. And if you are a member, then get involved. Take advantage of the resources that are there available to you as a member. And as you may have figured out by now, I think every single person listening to this podcast should be a member of your association. The biggest two are the Big I, the PIA. Pick whichever one that makes sense for you. In some states, the PIA has a much bigger presence than the Big I does. It kind of depends on where you are in the country. But if you're not involved, get involved. There's your call to action. And he is Chris Cline, and he's the executive director of the Agents Council for Technology with the Big I, as well as a published author. You don't know this yet, but I'm going to ask you to fill out a guest information form, and you can put the links and all the stuff there. Send me a headshot and all of that.
Cool.
So if you're thinking, wait a second, how's my information going to get out there? You're going to take care of that after we record. So,
oh, that's great. Yeah, now I see you fill out your press release after you say stuff. No, it's good.
No,
all good.
Yeah. So we'll put the links to your book on Amazon and Audible and literally whatever links you want us to share. Make sure that people can connect with you on LinkedIn or whatever is your preferred flavor of connection. And we'll leave it at that. I'm not sure who the next person is we're going to talk to, but I guarantee it's going to be interesting. Signing off here in New Orleans, Louisiana for Accelerate 2024. Thanks, Chris.
Appreciate it, James. Thanks so much, man.
All right. Bye.